Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is coming off the heels of a very controversial game with the third installment of the Modern Warfare reboot, MW3. Most complaints were that the campaign was too short and that there was no real engagement or feeling of responsibility in another character's death. Black Ops 6 is a kind of refreshing take, while other times left me wondering what the actual point of what I'm doing is. Before we get into it, the first part of this video will be spoiler free, but then the spoiler warning comes up and I'm going to lay it all out there. I'm going to go through what I think and I'll be completely honest. Whether I like it or hate it, I'll let you know. Every game generally has a formula to their franchise. For example, Mario is Bowser kidnapping the princess and you fight through enemies to eventually save her and free the kingdom. Even in Assassin's Creed, there's something happening affecting you or your family, and then eventually be taken under someone's wing, hunting down the emerging evil figurehead before he can have a lasting effect on history. Hell, even Minecraft has a formula, and I'm mining to gather resources, building and fighting mobs. Call of Duty is no exception. The story generally follows a group of people fighting the enemy until there's a major twist where the true bad guy is revolved or someone is killed. Then the focus shifts to that event, most cases until the end of the game.
That's one less loose end.
I'll get into that more later, but first I want to focus on the gameplay. There's only so much you can do with a first-person shooter when creating a unique experience while maintaining your brand. Most players play Call of Duty for a good story that feels familiar. The gunfights and shootouts feel how you would expect. However, I will say it did feel more satisfying, like your builds are actually doing damage. Although the difficulty varies, I'm sure. The map layouts are pretty cool, and the use of the final map in the game I found was very good. In most cases, the maps give you pretty clear direction and it's easy to find your way. With the exclusion of some cases where it took me a few minutes to figure out what to do, overall it's done pretty well. The overall mission layout was decent. Personally, I'm not a fan of the Warzone style missions that just give you an objective with a broad set of options on how to do it. One mission really stands out, that you've played the campaign, you know what I'm talking about. The desert. The dialogue options are kind of cool and almost a direct import from Cold War. It often feels like my choices have no actual weight, as it creates kind of a disconnect where I found myself almost spamming through the dialogue because it didn't really feel like what I chose mattered. Okay, if you haven't played the game, now this is the time to close off the video. If you've played the game or just want to know what it's like, this is the part for you. BO6 is one of the strangest campaigns I've ever played, but not necessarily in a bad way. The obvious new addition is the incorporation of the new bioweapon and zombies. This game starts like almost every other Call of Duty game, with your team being set up in an incident that causes some sort of separation from the organization you're working for. In this case, it's Adler killing a high-value target overseas. From there, you are reprimanded by the CIA and get a new base of operations, all while being fed information by Jones, Harrow. We find a biological weapon that turns people into animalistic killing machines, hellbent on taking down whoever is around them. Fast forward through Case's trips, as Marshall puts it, we find out that Harrow was behind the whole thing at Pantheon the whole time, revealing the big twist, all due to the CIA killing her parents, which Adler may or may not have done. I'm not entirely clear on that. All of this leads to an attack with their new base of operations after they capture Harrow from the Pantheon base, and a final showdown leads to Woods being stabbed, Felix shot, the house destroyed, and Jane and Case attacking each other in the presence of the new zombie pathogen. Overall, I thought the story was pretty good. The addition of a new horror element was actually pretty cool and unique, and it kept me on my toes throughout the game. I found myself dreading the missions, but in kind of a sick and twisted positive way. There was a couple jump scares that actually got me, like this one in the sequence you play as Jane, and the mission where the mannequins only chase you when you aren't looking at them. That was pure nightmare fuel, but overall it was pretty enjoyable. The 5 zombie bosses were pretty cool, and each one having a unique ability to them was a great way to avoid them feeling repetitive. The Harrow Nightmare missions were by far some of my favorite in the game, and I thought they were done really well. On the other side though, I really didn't like the desert mission where you're blowing up the sand missiles launchers, because after you blow up the first one, it all feels pretty similar. I will say that doing all of the optional side missions does feel worth it after you get to roll up the castle with all your newfound firepower. One main issue I have is with Case himself. You never really learn much about him other than he's assumed to be an old test subject on the zombie pathogen, but other than that, there isn't really a backstory. Which is a shame, because this is usually a strong point in these games. Black Ops 1, for example, does a fantastic job with Mason in establishing him as a character. Even Cold War created a reason to hate Adler through what he was doing to Bell and his betrayal to Bell. Case is only seen in this group and never really gives a reason for players to sympathize with him. At the end of the game, I almost cared more about Harrow than I did Case, because we got a way better look into the character and can understand why she's feeling the CIA has failed the country. I don't know if I personally would have went down the turn everyone into zombies route, but hey, maybe that's just me. Overall, I think Black Ops 6 has a pretty good campaign, even only being slightly larger than the MW3 campaign, but the story doesn't feel as rushed. I still think that there should be more of a focus on making the player's decisions feel like they really matter. The only time that you really feel like they matter is in the stealth missions, and even then you can go loud anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I still think the new addition of a little bit of a scary undertone in some of the missions is a welcome new addition to the old Call of Duty formula. I hope in the next installment of Call of Duty franchise it has a more defined character that makes you really feel some sort of connection to, and your choices should have more of an impact on the story rather than just losing the ability to be stealthy or failing the mission. That's everything for today. If you liked it, please let me know. Comment anything you'd change, and yeah, that's it. Thanks.